Welcome everyone to the captive audience. Sorry, we're starting a few minutes late here again. I just had some more technical problems, but finally, all the gremlins fled the system, and hopefully, this is all going to go nice and smooth. Great to be on. It is the 15th of April, April 15th. Yes, tax day, and you have only a few hours left to kind of get that all done. And hopefully, if you're taking the time to watch the show today, you have gotten that done. There are uh, some really good articles today that talk about tax day, but I'm going to share one of them with you here off the top and then launch into some of the national news and end with some stuff happening at the state level. Again, I'm Kevin Hoare, and I am an advocate for poetic justice. You'll find out what I mean by that in just a moment. So the Oregon Catalyst put together, the Taxpayers Association put together a nice little set of visuals for folks to look at on how your tax dollars are being wasted. For instance, one of them features Jesse Waters from his evening show on Fox News, saying that California was caught using Medicaid to pay for art and music lessons. Medicaid. Oregon was caught using Medicaid for cooking classes, air conditioners, and mini fridges. I'm not shocked by that. I am disappointed, but I am not shocked. And so there's many more of these. I'll share a few more with you. And here is the article posted. Hopefully you guys are seeing that on your feed. But, you can rest assured that your tax dollars that they're yanking out of your wallet are not fully needed because they're extravagantly wasted, as the article puts it. $38 million in tax funds for the Hillsboro Hops have been spent, and it's one of the nation's least attended baseball teams. Now, I like sports. I've been to one of their games, and I certainly hope that they can persevere. But in all honesty, $38 million is a lot of money to spend to fund a baseball team. These are businesses. They should function as a business and be profitable, not something that creates a deficit for taxpayers here in the state of Oregon when we've got so many things we say we can't solve and don't have enough money to do. A $134 million on a no cars allowed bridge. That's the bridge that, of course, is crossing the Willamette, not far from OHSU, where they spent a lot of money also on a sky trolley system that is also a gold-plated transport system for doctors. Another one, 10 new taxes cause mass Portland exodus. City doles out $250,000 vouchers to bribe people to come back. Environmental laws cause manufacturing decline. Politicians dole out millions to bribe them to come back. Yeah, bribing people to come back. That's kind of Lucy in the football stuff. You know what I mean? Tina Kotek's $9,330 taco party and her $13,000 party boat for the education department. $20 million in Oregon tax dollars subsidizing one-time movie shoots for celebrities and film crews. So it's supposed to bring in money to Oregon, but we've been sending a lot of money out to subsidize it. Oregon paid consultants $200,000 to plan and write a summary of First Lady Amy Kotek Wilson's led mental health event. So they paid consultants $200,000 to write a summary of that. Your money. What Oregon gives free to the homeless, and you can see this one, and it has all the different things that they've done and spent money on to give away free to the homeless. Free cigarettes, debit cards, free junk food, free chapstick, free tarps, free needles, free new tents, crack pipes, crack foils, free clothes. There you go. Millions of dollars in grants to Portland pot shops while the city defunded the police. Yes, that's right. Now the pot shops are regretting that because, of course, they're the first place that somebody goes to rob. And the police, of course, are not in a position to deter all that crime in Portland. $29 million spent on an airport hotel to house non-citizens at the cost of $21,000 per guest. There's a picture of the hotel there. And there are many more of these. You should take a look at this. And they stretch back over the years. And, yep, they are not reassuring. But that's why we fight the fight that we do. And, we still pay our taxes, but we also fight to make sure that they don't throw it into the toilet, which is exactly what they do here in Oregon. Now, on to poetic justice. A federal agency, the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, has issued a criminal referral to the Department of Justice of New York Attorney General Letitia James. And it's for prosecution for alleged mortgage fraud. If you'll remember, this is the New York Attorney General who promised to get Trump when she ran for Attorney General in New York. And then she got into office and proceeded to do exactly that. And it was her office that sponsored and led the way in filing these novel charges that against Trump and trying to throw him in jail for everything, including jaywalking. And it didn't work out. And in the end, he did get elected president again. But it looks like poetic justice is happening. The director, William Pulte, the director of the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, made this referral to Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy, Todd Blanche. And they attached the evidence that corroborated media reports alleging irregularities in a series of loans that Letitia James obtained, including a property in Virginia. And this property in Virginia, she claimed that in order to get a lower mortgage rate, she claimed that it was her primary residence, which is impossible for somebody who must have a primary residence in the state of New York in order to be Attorney General. Also, the lying on these forms is a subject of criminal prosecution when you obtain a loan under favorable terms. And then apparently she also lied on a form that related to New York property that's mentioned, I believe, in Brooklyn, where she said in order to qualify for the loan, the property had to have only 4 units in it, but it had 5, but she put 4 on there. Also, she appears to have stated on one of the forms that her father was in fact her husband. And this is probably the most provably false claim because you don't have to. It's very easy to prove that she should have known that her father is not her husband on this form. And there is a precedence for this on mortgage fraud. The Baltimore City State Attorney, Marilyn Mosby, was also prosecuted and had to serve a year of home confinement, I guess is what it's called, because she falsified a mortgage application for a Florida property purchase while serving as a Maryland prosecutor. Now, James is by far the most prominent Trump nemesis to face federal investigation. But this isn't even this isn't the Trump administration going out of the way to find this. They prosecute these things quite frequently. And she's the one who said, no one's above the law, and really pushed forward these very trivial items, claiming that they were against Trump, claiming that they were business record falsifications, when in fact um, there were no victims of this, and it was an administrative error potentially, but not something that President Trump was like willfully doing. And of course she said that wasn't necessary, because they said buck stops with him, and he has to know what's on every one of these applications submitted, even if it's submitted by people in his company. And so now she is going to lack the ability to claim that someone else did this on her behalf. So fascinating, I think. And oh, wait a second. By the way, I noticed that we are not on. Let me see if I can add Facebook here real quick. I don't know if it'll let me do that, but let's see. Sending data. Save. Okay. Hopefully you can see me now. I've been on for about 11 minutes here, and it wouldn't let me get onto Facebook before. Sorry that all of you might only be seeing me for the first time now, but I just covered the Letitia James story. And so now she is facing something that I heard a commentary from Jonathan Turley, the law professor from George Washington University. He's a Democrat, but very fair, straight shooter. And he said, I don't know how she can defend herself on this one, because, uh, you know, there isn't really a defense for it, because it's so easily proven. It meets all the standards, including the Thompson standard, which he said has been used by the courts before to say that the Thompson standard must be something that the person knew had to be false when they filled out the form. And of course, her knowing that her father is not her husband is provably easily proven to be false, and that she knew. And of course, President Trump did comment on this. So Letitia James, a totally corrupt politician, should have resigned from her position, New York State Attorney General, immediately. And so I think there's definitely some poetic justice happening here, and it couldn't happen to a nicer, corrupt attorney general who turned the legal system upside down for political purposes. You're not supposed to go and target a person and then try to find a crime. She just seems to have been caught up in a dragnet here that's going on all the time, that's caught others, including many public officials, the Marilyn Mosby being one of the examples, where mortgage application fraud in order to get favorable loan terms is something that does get prosecuted. It's not a novel application of the law that has never been done before. It's common everyday thing, and she just is really stupid. And so I think she may not be long in her position. And if she decides to stay in that position, I think maybe she will lessen the chances that Democrats will be able to win the governorship here in the next election cycle. And it couldn't happen to a nicer party in a nicer state. By the way, Lori and everyone else watching, I did cover, and I'll repost it here in case you didn't get it. There was a really good set of memes that you can enjoy here on tax day about how your tax dollars are being wasted, since today is the day that everybody's supposed to file and pay their taxes. And certainly you got to pay your taxes even if you get an extension and you don't file today. Harvard is facing a tough time here. They've just had $2.2 billion in federal grants frozen and $60 million in contracts because of their failure to comply with President Trump's executive order to cease discrimination on the basis of diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. in the function of the university. And Harvard's decided to dig in. I guess a bunch of professors there have gotten together and they're going to go and see if they can't. The president of Harvard said the university will not comply with these demands, and these professors have gotten together and they're trying to file a lawsuit against this. And President Obama says that Harvard has, quote, set an example, unquote, for how colleges should reject Trump's demands. So some colleges have actually not only given into this, but are actively trying to purge DEI from their programs. Harvard is so bought into it that they've decided that it's worth the fight and the cost. And they're going to take the Trump administration to court, I guess, to fight them. And Barack Obama, the guy who really gave birth to the advent of all of this DEI stuff being coaxed into existence at the federal level and across all these universities, and aided and abetted it, and it only got worse during the Brandon administration, thinks this is a super awesome idea. He said that it's worth doing. That Harvard, he says, is rejecting an unlawful and ham-handed attempt to stifle academic freedom, which is apparently what discrimination is now called, while taking concrete steps to make sure all students at Harvard can benefit from an environment of intellectual inquiry, rigorous debate, and mutual respect. Unless, of course, you disagree with DEI, then you're going to be discriminated against, for sure. And of course, Obama attended Harvard's law school and in 1990 became the Harvard Law Review's first Black president. So the administration has demanded that the schools implement merit-based hiring reform programs with a history of anti-Semitism and get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. They've refused. They love anti-Semitism. They love DEI, and they don't care for merit. By the way, I did listen to a report the other day, which is very interesting. I think it must have been on Fox News, and it was talking about how Harvard is having to institute a remedial math program for incoming students in order to get those students to catch up, because so many of them are now that they've dropped the standards, eliminated SAT qualifications, and are trying to admit people under standards that don't really bear any resemblance to academic standards or academic performance. They've got people that actually have to be brought up to speed to sufficient math in order to function at Harvard University. So, yeah, that's insane but look, they're destroying themselves and their own academic reputation out of a sense of wokeness. Meanwhile, President Trump has one-upped on this whole thing and said he suggested that maybe Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status since they want to openly discriminate against Jews and against anybody who is not favored by DEI policies. And maybe they should be taxed as a political entity, since that's what they're doing, is they're campaigning for a political ideology, and they are accommodating terrorist-inspired mental illness. And I thought that's great. He said, remember, tax-exempt status is totally contingent on acting in the public interest, all caps. So the battle's afoot, and Harvard has decided they want to be at the cutting edge of wokeness. Meanwhile, conservative school districts in the country are begging President Trump to save them from their blue states' gender identity mandates. Some school districts in eastern Washington face either loss of federal or state funding, depending on which threats they succumb to. They tell the Department of Education. An Oregon male athlete dominating girls' track spurs controversy once again. And I think I talked about this a week or two ago. But these deep blue states are putting the squeeze on the school districts to comply with the woke pro-trans policies of having, for instance, biological males compete in female sports, which runs directly counter to the president's executive order ending that funding and threatening to deprive states of all of their funding if they continue along those lines. And so I guess we're going to see this play out. But these are conservative school districts that don't want to have any part of the woke DEI trans stuff. And there's a suburban Spokane district near the Idaho border, which serves more than 10,000 students. And it's seeking an investigation of civil rights and parents' rights violations in coordination with the U.S. Department of Justice to examine the directive as a potential violation of Title IX, which was designed actually to protect women in the function of sports activities and also federal protections for parental involvement. The Kennewick School Board is near the Oregon border, and it went all caps in this request: urgent federal intervention requested, and to fight openly discriminatory policies. Meanwhile, the Tumwater School District, next to the state capital of Olympia, known for its super liberal Evergreen State College, is under investigation and now reeling from a $25 million settlement with the family of a student who died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And it's also the birthplace of the feminist punk music scene known as Riot Grrrl. And so Tumwater is accused of sex discrimination by letting a male play in girls' basketball game and retaliating against the girl who refused to compete against the male, retaliating against her. And so the school board approved a resolution before the investigation to amend WIAA rules to create a boys/open division for all student athletes and a girls category based on sex. A couple hours south here in the Portland Public School District, the OSAA, Oregon School Activities Association, is now under federal investigation for letting a male compete in a girls' track and field competition last month and to use the girls' locker room while female athletes were changing, unquote. And of course, this is a state policy in Oregon to allow that male participation, but it runs counter to the federal mandates here. So in the past 2 years, they've allowed a male athlete to compete in and win in the 200 and 400 meter dashes, both times, besting the 400 meter run up by 7 seconds. However, the athlete, who the lamestream media will not identify by name, came in second in the 400 last year against male athletes when he was deemed himself to be a male. They said that the athlete has been identified by Redux Gender Critical magazine as Aiden Ada Gallagher. And so the OSAA policy barely recognizes sex as a biological reality anymore, referring to it only once as sex assigned at birth, as distinct from a person's internal sense of being male, female, or some other gender, and defining transgender as an individual whose gender does not match his or her assigned birth gender. So they've come up with these woke definitions. By the way, did I post yes, I did post the Trump article. Let me post this one and you can see more. And yeah, the trans athlete just pounded the crap out of the women in this, won by 7 seconds, even though he was mediocre and lost badly in a previous male competition. So this is everything that's wrong with the transgender competition of biological males in female sports. I think we're going to see this held out as an example and probably run through the court system, state and federal. And good. The superintendent, Kimberly Armstrong, told Willamette Week that the district is, quote, in full compliance, unquote, with state law, which may differ from federal guidance. She says she's doing what's right for students, especially those most vulnerable, and remains unwavering. She doesn't consider female athletes that are being who are being pounded into the ground by this the unfair male competition as being vulnerable. Just the male who thinks he's female, and so there's a burgeoning movement. Parents Defending Education is a recently rebranded group. They want to restore political neutrality, diversity of viewpoint, and free exchange of ideas to American education and college, as well as K through 12 schools. And they're stepping in to this whole thing. And so, you know, the schools stand to lose 10% of their budget, which comes from federal funding. They say it would be absolutely devastating, but they're so committed to this anyway that they're going to do it anyway. So good, they can do it with their own money. It's about time. The Trump administration has launched a probe into the national security implications of importing certain pharmaceuticals. And this is important because we learned during COVID that the Chinese Communist Party threatened to and had the power to deprive us of many basic pharmaceuticals because the precursors or the pharmaceuticals themselves are being manufactured in China. And we aren't just talking about abstract stuff, but some of this is life-saving stuff that we're reliant on China for. And so they're looking at whether or not tariffs are going to be needed in this case. And also, what they're studying it first to make sure they know that they've got the right tariffs on the right items, pharmaceuticals, and the ingredients, and the reliance on other countries. The Secretary of Commerce initiated an investigation to determine the effects on national security of these pharmaceuticals and their ingredients. And I know some of the items that we're relying upon are ones that maybe many of you might be taking. So they said that that the investigation, a Section 232 investigation, typically takes 270 days to complete. However, they think it could be faster, and that comments for the notice are due in 3 weeks after the notice is officially posted, which will be April 16th. So they're moving along expeditiously on this, and I think this is overdue. The Biden administration did jack on this, nothing, even though they knew it was really a threat. A judge has blocked the Trump administration from ending a Biden-era migrant program, and this is the I forget the exact name of it, but it was an acronym that utilizes the names of these countries, and it was temporary protective status: Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. But this judge has come in and substituted his judgment for, or her judge, Indira Talwani, has substituted her decision making in for the president and the executive branch, saying and has essentially put the program to revoke and this protection and deport these individuals. Which, by the way, the Springfield, Ohio example involving Haitians who would now then return to Haiti is a great example. And the Department of Homeland Security has been eliminating this immigration status as part of the government's effort to shut down the program on April 24th. But this judge has come in and blocked it. So we're going to see that play out. This is where the Biden administration essentially started creating a de facto amnesty program for huge swaths of people, just based on because they wanted to and they could. Um, so this is really going to be very interesting to see what happens with this. I think it's important to note that, and I can check this, but 3/4 of the judges that are hearing challenges to President Trump's actions have been appointed by Democrats. 3/4, and we covered that yesterday. And let me see if I can quickly look up this Indira Talwani. Let's see. She was nominated by President Barack Obama in 2013, confirmed in 2014. There's your answer. Yet another one. And so we're gonna see a constant stream of this. It's just going to continue. Meanwhile, President Trump is not expected to attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He didn't go to any of the previous dinners, so no one should be shocked. But I think there's really no reason to go to it because, and Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, will also not be there. I think that this is just going to wither and turn into a joke. The leftist media loving themselves. And the dinner is supposed to take place on April 26th. It's supposed to be hosted by the White House Correspondents Association. So the people that are actually in the press room, for instance, representing the different outlets, are members of that Correspondents Association when Caroline Leavitt gives her press briefings. But the comedian Amber Ruffin was going to be the featured comedian at this. However, the association president, Eugene Daniels, has now said that Ruffin would no longer be at the event, and he wants to ensure the focus isn't on political division, but rather awarding journalists for their hard work. So they might be maybe dumping some of the comedic stuff, which means nobody will watch it, which would be great. And it's about time that they got what they deserved. There's a report saying that Republicans are starting to lose their edge in polling on inflation and the economy, but are still considered much stronger in terms of immigration and crime. However, it's only marginally, and it's, of course, with the Democrats running around and screaming that tariffs are the end of the world, and trying to crash the markets as much as they can by emphasizing that. So Republicans still maintain a narrow advantage on the economy generally, 41% to 40%. But in terms of inflation, supposedly Democrats, who did nothing but cause inflation for 4 years, are now at a 42% support level to the GOP's 38%. And, some of this stuff started ticking down in March. The Democrats kept running around blaming the price of eggs on Republicans who just took office. And we know that reaches a bunch of people, unfortunately, through the fake news media. This is just one survey on April 9th and 10th. We have not seen a surge in inflation or prices. So I think this is, again, just people reacting to the media telling them that prices are going up, which for 4 years, they told people that it's transient inflation. It's not really as bad as you think, that prices are coming down when they were just slowing increase, but not coming down. And so it's a media phenomena, and we just have to do the right things to make sure that we have the strongest possible healthy economy. In Oregon, there's a bill to supposedly get rid of what they call pharmacy deserts. Rural Oregon communities, many of them have and seen their pharmacies disappear basically from the local towns and cities. Now Oregon ranks second to last, just behind Alaska, for pharmacy access. And of course, Alaska has a fraction of the population and very remote areas that are very hard to support with this type of stuff. But pharmacists are saying that the reimbursement level is just too low, and they're losing money and closing. And only the government would say that it's a great idea to do something like that to a business. The legislation seeks to address this by giving more power to drugstores when dealing with pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. Now, there's a controversy about this bill, and I think it's worth noting that there are two sides to this argument. And I've actually heard one of the other sides, um, which is, I think, important for folks to know what the real story is, because many times hospitals are pocketing the money, and this doesn't have anything to do with the pharmaceutical companies. So the Association of Oregon Counties has actually testified against the measure. And if you think about it, most of the counties in the state are rural counties. And he said that large public employers that provide health insurance to our employees would face higher insurance premiums in order to support what this bill could do. So I don't know. I think we need to keep an eye on this and make sure that the government doesn't make things worse, in the so-called effort to make things better. No, our gas won't go down in Oregon because they are raising taxes on gas. And I covered last night the many taxes that they want to apply to gasoline and to various other things it takes to operate a car, because you need to be punished for doing that. A great example of how not to rebuild public trust has taken place in Washington County. Washington County's Clean Water Services and Multnomah County's Preschool for All programs both have work to do shoring up public trust, but their leaders apparently need a refresher course on what exactly that means. Clean Water Services is a sewer agency that serves the 600,000 Washington County residents. But agency officials freely use ratepayer money, either directly or indirectly, to fund five-star hotel rooms, first-class airfare to Hawaii, and tens of thousands of dollars on meals at local restaurants. You can't make this stuff up. This is the Oregonian, by the way. This isn't some like conservative right-wing sleuths. This is the Oregonian. And this came only after a reporter, Jamie Goldberg, for the Oregonian, it made extensive requests for public records, and many of those requests have not yet been fulfilled. But Jamie, it's a she, don't want to misgender her, said that the Washington County chair and commissioners who oversee the sewer agency as a separate board had little to say about all this stuff. They dismissed the findings. And a newcomer to the board, Commissioner Jason Snyder, said he did not think the reporting on the Hawaii trips was particularly accurate or balanced. And he gave no specifics why. Others didn't comment at all. So it's kind of a big step backwards for transparency and public trust in a county that used to enjoy a lot of that, back when Andy Dyke was the county commission chair, for example. But it's taken a swing to the left, and along with it, a hit to its credibility as they treat the public's money as if they can do whatever they want. Anyway, and then Multnomah County's Preschool for All program, which is out collecting taxes from people they say are wealthy, say they've exceeded their goals and how many preschoolers were served in the first 2 years. But actually, the program fell short of the number of seats officials promised voters when they said that they had to have this money. And so they've been quietly lowering the targets without telling the public, and then claiming once they had that they had now exceeded the new goals, which is not what they said they would do when they said they needed the money. So it's kind of like what they do with the education system. They talk about how the graduation rates are doing better after they dropped all standards for graduation and said, we're going to just graduate everybody we can anyway. So they're out claiming these things. They don't feel accountable for this. They are getting caught red-handed, and the Oregonians calling them out. And the editorial board is saying this is not how you get people to believe what you're saying as a governmental entity. That's really a chronic problem in this state. Senate Bill 1154 is raising major questions for rural Oregon, and an Oregon Catalyst article hits this one pretty square and says you can always count on the Oregon legislature to turn a well-intentioned idea into a fiasco for rural property owners. What started as a measure to ensure safe drinking water for your own protection for rural Oregonians has turned into a land use bill that threatens the future of property owners who had no role in causing groundwater contamination. Much like the wildfire program that was started in 2021, it's well-intentioned, but now, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Half of the state agency's existing authority, it says there's a state of emergency that's unfolding in Eastern Oregon and is intended to build off the state's agency's existing authority. Unfortunately, this massive 83-page bill has 3 sections buried in the middle that target innocent property owners and stands to hurt the very people it's supposed to protect. It allows counties to prohibit new residential construction in groundwater quality management areas unless homes are connected to public water systems, most of which are not. And it goes further to give the Department of Land Conservation and Development carte blanche authority to create rules dictating where counties must prohibit new structures. Worse still, it permits the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, which has been shut down by hacking for several days, to enter into private property and without landowner consent and inspect subsurface sewage disposal systems. A horrific overreach that there's no check and balance against. And so all of these folks that they were initially saying they were protecting against industrial contamination are now not only going to be facing these inspections and prohibitions on construction, but this is the state that said they're going to build 35,000 new homes a year. No way in hell that's going to happen if they're going to make it with other rules and laws impossible to do so. So it kind of gets more complicated from there, but I've tried to summarize the highlights here. And again, it's the government. We're from the government and we're here to help are the most fearsome words in the English language, as Ronald Reagan used to say. In a few other news stories worth mentioning, a Georgia man, at least this is what the original article said, a Georgia man, just like that guy that got the illegal alien who got deported for his involvement with MS-13 was just a Maryland father. A Georgia man, Ali Akbar Mohammed Amin, 24 of Lilburn, has been brought up on charges of threatening to kill Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and her family. He said, quote, "You and your family are going to die soon, and I will personally do the job if necessary," unquote. Sounds like a threat. "Prepare to die, Tulsi, and everyone you hold dear, America will burn." So, dude's been taken into custody and is being charged. And this is what didn't happen during the Brandon administration. Nobody did this. They just didn't hold these criminals accountable. And of course, as we saw, there were 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. The threats continue. And the foaming at the mouth idiots are everywhere across the country. So I think that kind of covers the most important news. You did probably hear that the Oregon Republican Party chairman quietly resigned last week after he had exposed some of his legal and personal financial records that people didn't know about when he was running for chairman and elected by the State Central Committee. So stay tuned for more news on that. But as of now, I don't have any particular updates other than that's what's happened. And I think it is important that um, the state party get its act together and get on track here as soon as possible, early in 2025, because we've got a lot of work to do. And it does appear, but I don't know this for sure, that the vice chair, uh, Connie Welshel, is going to be replacing him as chair. So, but it's not confirmed yet, and I guess we will hear that confirmed soon. Anyway, that's this news, the long and the short of it, for the 15th of April, tax day. And I hope all of you are able to share with your friends and family not only this show, but all the news about what our tax dollars are doing or not doing or being wasted, and paying for, and let people know so that they vote differently next time, not just on the level of taxation, but on what's being done with the money, contrary to the public's wishes. Anyway, have a great night, and I will see you on the next episode of The Captive Audience next week. And tomorrow night, I believe you'll have Sonny Danforth and maybe a guest. I don't know, but Sonny will be